My name is Clara. I'm 37 years old. There's no graceful way to begin this, so I won't pretend there is. When I spoke those words I hadn't rehearsed, hadn't fully understood myself, it felt like the ground shifted beneath us. Everything we had built, everything I thought I could count on, cracked in silence. I want a different life, I told him. My voice trembled, thick with emotions I didn't yet know how to name. At the time, I thought it was temporary, just a fleeting frustration, a storm passing through. But I was wrong, so terribly, painfully wrong. You don't always realize the weight your words carry until they've already shattered the world around you. I used to think time was endless, that there would always be chances to make things right, to rewind, to fix the damage before it was permanent. But time doesn't wait, and neither does regret. It creeps in quietly, then roots itself deep, blooming into something too large to ignore. Our marriage wasn't broken. That's the part that haunts me most. We weren't fighting. We weren't cruel to each other. In many ways, we were still kind, still soft, still us. At least I believe we were. But somewhere hidden in the quiet routines of daily life, I began to unravel. The very life I had once longed for, the stillness, the calm, the shared silences that once soothed me, began to feel like a cage. The same rhythms that used to ground me now made me restless. And that restlessness grew like a shadow. I began imagining something else, something more vivid, more alive, a life less mapped out, one where I didn't know exactly how my mornings would go or what dinner would taste like. I wanted spontaneity. I wanted excitement. I wanted to feel like there was still something ahead of me that hadn't already been decided. I convinced myself that wanting more didn't make me selfish, that craving adventure didn't make me ungrateful. But I never paused to consider the price. It started with the little betrayals, the way I'd drift off mid-conversation, staring out the window at nothing in particular, the way I stopped laughing at his jokes, stopped leaning into him at night. I told myself it wasn't important, that it didn't mean anything. But looking back, those moments were the beginning of the end. I had started to pull away without realizing how far I'd gone. And then there was Daniel. He appeared like a gust of warm wind through a cracked window, uninvited but impossible to ignore. He was everything Jake wasn't, untamed, unpredictable, full of charm that came easy. Daniel made me feel like a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. Youthful, desirable, untethered. He spoke of road trips and music festivals, of quitting jobs and starting fresh in cities I'd only read about. With him, I felt like I had stepped into someone else's story. Someone exciting. Someone free. Jake was the opposite. Solid. Constant. The kind of man who kept the fridge stocked and my car's oil changed without ever needing to be asked. He was comfort in human form. Reliable in all the ways that never make headlines, but make a life worth living. He was my foundation. But somehow, I began to resent that steadiness. I mistook his calm for complacency. I began to see our life together as something I'd settled for, not chosen. That was the poison. And so, one unremarkable evening, after a day filled with the usual errands and half-hearted smiles, it happened. I looked at him, and out it came, without warning, without filter. I want a different life. I said it like an accusation. But the only one on trial was me. There was no script, no graceful way to cushion the blow. It was raw, angry, desperate. A release of all the tangled emotions I hadn't dared speak aloud. But the truth is, I didn't even know what I wanted. I only knew that this, our life, our routine, our quiet, suddenly felt unbearable. The look on Jake's face is something I will never forget. The warmth that had always lived behind his eyes vanished in an instant. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing, not a single word. He just looked at me, searching my face for something I couldn't give. Maybe he thought I would take it back. Maybe I hoped I would too. But I didn't. I just stood there, a stranger in my own home, saying things I didn't fully understand. I don't think I could be the person you need me to be, I whispered, almost ashamed of myself. He took a slow step backward, as if the air between us had turned dangerous. His shoulders sagged under the weight of what I had said, as if I'd struck him somewhere deep. And still no shouting. No dramatic exit. He didn't even ask why. He just stood there, lips trembling, trying not to let the hurt show, but it did. It showed in every inch of him. That night, he didn't leave. He stayed under the same roof, a silent presence I could feel in every corner of the house. We didn't speak. We didn't sleep. Something between us had ruptured beyond repair, and neither of us knew how to name it, but we both felt it. The next morning, he moved like a ghost, quiet, deliberate, detached. He packed a bag, slow and steady. He didn't look at me, not once. And when he walked out the door, he didn't slam it. He didn't say goodbye. He just disappeared. And I let him. Some foolish part of me believed he'd come back, that he just needed space, that this was all temporary. But 2 days later, I found a letter on the kitchen counter. It wasn't long. It didn't rage or plead. He simply wrote that he couldn't do it anymore, that living beside someone who was half in, who was dreaming of escape, wasn't fair to either of us. I need to find myself. Clara, the last line read, I hope you do, too. That was the moment that broke me, the moment the floor fell out from beneath me, and I realized the damage I had done couldn't be undone with a single apology. I called. I texted. I sent emails in the middle of the night, hoping that maybe if I explained enough, if I said I was sorry with the right combination of words, he would return, but he never responded. Days blurred into weeks. My world quieted in ways I never anticipated. I began to see him everywhere, in the mundane, the forgotten. I'd reach for the salsa he always loved without thinking, only to leave it behind in the cart. Songs on the radio would bring tears before I even recognized the lyrics. The silence at night became unbearable, louder than any argument we'd ever had. I lay awake in bed, night after night, haunted by the echo of those words. I want a different life. And I wonder endlessly what would have happened if I had just stayed, if I had chosen gratitude over restlessness, if I had taken a breath before speaking. Jake was my home. He was the soft place I landed when the world got too heavy. And I let go of all of that because I believed there was more out there. But now all I have is the emptiness of this house and 1,000 memories that don't know where to go. So if you're reading this and you're loved, truly loved, by someone who shows up for you, who listens to your quiet, who stays even when the world feels heavy, don't look away. Don't chase shiny illusions that whisper promises of more, because sometimes what you already have is everything. I would give anything to take back that moment, to unspeak those words. But life doesn't work that way. And now, I'm left with only the silence and the shadows of life I walked away from, still wondering what could have been if I had just chosen to stay.